If you're a senior who's tried losing body fat in the past without long-term success, then this video is for you. In this video, you're going to learn why most weight loss approaches fail in the long term, as well as several criteria to evaluate the different weight loss approaches, as well as the gold standard when it comes to successful weight loss in the long term. If you click this video, it's probably because you want to learn how to lose body fat without dangerous restrictive diets, unproven supplements, and questionable exercise programs. But I have to be transparent. What we're going to talk about in this video will not work for 100% of the people. Nothing works for 100% of the people 100% of the time. Not medications, not surgery, not exercise, not supplements, not nutrition. But it will work for a large chunk of people. The system that I'm about to share with you is what my team and I have used to help thousands of people, especially seniors, lose body fat without anything like dangerous diets or short-term fads. One example here is Liz, who lost 24 pounds after breaking a leg and being able to deadlift 225 pounds. My name is Eor. I've been a personal trainer since 2006. I've published 17 books on exercise and nutrition and delivered over 450 speaking engagements to some of the world's largest corporations, including American Express, IBM, and others. In this video, I'll show you the system that seniors use to lose body fat, get stronger, be more toned, and have more energy. And if you watch this video until the end, I'm going to give you a free PDF version of my Amazon book called Stop Exercising the Way You Are Doing It Now. Now, here are 5 reasons why the system that I'm about to share with you works so well. First of all, it's beginner friendly. It's taking people who have never exercised in the past into account, but also it's taking into account people who have minor exercise experience, things like fitness classes or just hiking, just walking, taking 10,000 steps per day, and so on. It's also senior friendly. In other words, if somebody has chronic conditions or if somebody has things like diabetes, arthritis, joint pain, it's still for you. It's also personalized. This is not a one-size-fits-all program. Every person is different. They have their own unique goals, their own unique preferences, their own unique injuries, medications, medical conditions, and so on. All these things must be taken into account in order to make your program as effective as possible for your body. It also has built-in accountability. One of the biggest reasons for failure with fat loss in the long term is just the lack of accountability. What used to work for you before doesn't work for you down the line. Lastly, safety first. It really takes safety into account. It's not about using dangerous diets that can obstruct your bile flow as well as your liver health, your heart health, and so on. It's not about using dangerous exercise programs that will hurt your joints even further in the quest for a leaner body. Safety first. It's both safety and effectiveness, not just effectiveness without safety. We need both. You're probably aware of the statistic that most people who try to lose weight don't succeed at keeping it off. In fact, over 85% of people fail at maintaining their weight loss. And they try different things. They try things like diets, group exercise classes, supplements, YouTube exercise videos, dietitians, and just reading different articles and watching different videos and trying to piece everything together themselves. And yet, despite all these various different approaches, they all have somewhere between 85 and 100% rate of failure. The end result, of course, besides failure, is frustration and occasionally injury. If you're going to try to do your own exercise program, if it's not safe, if you haven't programmed it properly, you're going to, you might be a little leaner, you might be a little stronger, but you also end up with more achy joints. Also frustration to repeat the same thing over and over and over again and maybe see results in the short term, but maybe not, but never see results in the long term. That leads to a repeating cycle of more and more and more failure. So what are some criteria that you can use to evaluate whether an approach is effective or not? Here are 5 criteria that I recommend. 1 is safety. Will it cause your joints to hurt? But also, is it safe for your internal organs? How is it for your liver, your heart, your gallbladder, and so on? Just because it's good for fat loss doesn't mean we want to ignore other things that might also be very, very relevant. You don't just want to look better, you want to look better, feel better. You don't want to feel terribly and look great. Another criterion is effectiveness. Just because it's safe doesn't mean it's effective. A surefire way to never get injured is just sit on the couch. But that's not going to be effective for helping you lose weight. So we want both safety and effectiveness. Another criterion is accountability. For a lot of people, the reason they can't maintain weight loss in the long term is that they have nobody to be accountable to. They can let themselves off the hook. It's too easy to just go back to your old habits. You need a constant reminder that you're not done. Fat loss is never a finished process. It should be looked at as a recurring relapsing condition, kind of like alcoholism is. People in Alcoholics Anonymous need to keep going to Alcoholics Anonymous for the rest of their life. People with bipolar disorder need to take their medications for the rest of their life. People who once used to be overweight or obese need to keep in mind that they have the genes for it. They can easily go back there if they don't have some kind of guardrails to protect them against that. So accountability is a huge factor. Another factor is sustainability. Are you able to maintain what you're doing right now in the long term? Just because you can do a diet and lose 30 pounds of fat in a matter of 6 or 8 weeks doesn't mean you can maintain this for your entire life. Eventually you get hungry. Just because you can do an exercise program for a certain period of time doesn't mean you can do it for the long term. So it's important to find something that actually is enjoyable, but even if it's not enjoyable, is at least sustainable. And the last criterion I'll talk about is cost. Of course, cost is an issue. Some approaches are free. For example, YouTube videos, you can get a book at the library, talking to friends, all that kind of stuff is free. Then there's, of course, the premium stuff like one-on-one personal training, running your own blood work, lab work, diagnostics, stuff like that. That's gonna be more premium, but very often, yes, you spend money, but you save time and you save energy and frustration. So it's always a question of, is it worth it? I can't say everybody should be within a certain budget because different people have different amounts of money, and also different people have different priorities. Those are the 5 criteria. Again, safety, effectiveness, accountability, sustainability, and cost. So now, let's compare the various different approaches using these 5 criteria. Let's start with diets. Are they safe? And it really depends on which diet we're talking about. Some diets are safe, some diets aren't safe. Most diets are better than what overweight people are eating to begin with. So let's say that in the safety department, the average diet is pretty good. Now there are some extreme diets that are not safe, but by and large, most diets are maybe not perfect, but better than what an average overweight or obese person is currently eating. So safety is, let's give it a check mark. The next one is effectiveness. Now we have to distinguish between effectiveness in the short term and effectiveness in the long term. In the short term, if you follow them, diets get a check mark. In the long term, 85% of diets don't get a check mark, but it's not the diet's fault. We'll talk about what's going on later on in this video. Next, sustainability. Diets are definitely not sustainable because the failure rate is so high. So that's a negative there. Accountability. Well, if all you have is a web page or a page in a book, that's not keeping you accountable. You need accountability to a person or a group of people. So that's a no-go there. Cost. Well, the cost depends on how did you get that diet? Did a dietitian create that diet for you? In which case, if it's just a one-time cost, it's not a big deal. Or did AI generate the diet for you? Did you read a book about it? In which case, it's not that expensive and it might actually save you money because you're eating less food. So in the cost department, usually it's a check mark. So we have maybe 2 or 3 out of 5, depending how you choose to evaluate it. Next, let's look at supplements. Again, let's use our criteria. Are supplements safe? Well, here's the thing. The fat loss supplements that are safe are not effective. The ones that are effective aren't safe. So you can have one check mark, but not both. For example, things like green tea extract is very, very safe, but you're going to lose maybe 2 pounds in 12 weeks. It's not very much. Something like CLA or conjugated linoleic acid, again, very, very safe, but you might lose 2 to 3 pounds in a 3 to 6 month period. It's not very much. Those that are effective aren't necessarily safe. Things like ephedrine, clenbuterol, etc. are very, very effective, but they're not safe. Not in the long term for sure. Next, sustainability. Well, that's a big giant X there because nobody's been studied for at using these in the long term. So what happens when you inevitably have to stop using these supplements, maybe because of the side effects, etc. The longest studies on these supplements are 3 to 6 months. Now, I assume you want to stay lean for your entire life. So these supplements have not been studied with decades of use. So sustainability, big giant X there. Accountability, well, you don't really need a lot of accountability because you're just taking a capsule or a powder or a tablet. So that's not a huge issue. And as for cost, they're not the most expensive things in the world. They're not the cheapest things in the world. So the cost is manageable, and depending on which ones you take, however many you take, etc. So let's give this one a check mark. Next, group fitness classes. Are they safe? Well, largely it depends on which classes, who you are, what injuries you bring to the table, etc. But let's go with medium. Sometimes if you're taking a class but you already have pre-existing injuries, it could worsen those injuries. Sometimes the instructor might be pushing you too hard. Sometimes the instructor is pushing you adequately, but his or her attention is divided across 20 or 30 people in the class. You don't get one-on-one attention. So you might be doing things wrong. It's not their fault. You just don't know you're doing it wrong. So safety is, I'd say, for fitness classes, not that safe. Next, effectiveness. When it comes to fat loss, absolutely not. That's a big giant X. If diets have 15% success rate, then group fitness classes have a much lower success rate for the simple reason that in general, exercise by itself is very disappointing when it comes to fat loss. Nutrition is where the large majority of the results come from. So effectiveness from group fitness classes is a big giant X. Sustainability. Again, it largely depends on which classes you're taking. If you're taking things like gentle yoga classes, like Hatha yoga or yin yoga, absolutely, you can do that for your entire life. If you're taking aquafit, you could probably do that for your entire life. But if you're taking high impact aerobics, maybe your knees, ankles, or hips will pay the price before you can do it for decades. So you'll have to stop that for a period of time. So again, it varies largely by which class you're taking, the instructor, and your own, what do you bring to the table as well. Accountability. In other words, if you don't show up for class, is the instructor going to call you and say, where are you? No. So there's no accountability when it comes to group fitness classes. And the cost is actually pretty manageable. You can get group fitness classes for anywhere from 20 bucks per class to maybe 150 bucks per month. So it's not crazy expensive. There are more expensive alternatives out there. There are cheaper alternatives out there. So for now, let's give this one a check mark. Next, let's talk about YouTube exercise videos. The huge advantage of YouTube exercise videos over everything else is cost. It's free. You just need an internet connection. As for the rest of it, safety, depends who the instructor is, because anybody can jump on a YouTube video and start filming classes. They don't even need to be certified, they don't need to be experienced, they just need to have a camera and start shooting. So safety, I wouldn't say so. Effectiveness, well, if you can get good results with an in-person exercise class, you probably can't do it with YouTube exercise classes. Sustainability, again, largely depends. So it's the same thing as for group fitness classes. Accountability, absolutely not. You get none of that with a YouTube exercise video, but the cost is good, zero. Next is a dietitian. Now, inherently, because you're seeing a professional, you have the added benefit of personalization. Therefore, safety gets a huge check mark. Effectiveness, huge X, because if you follow the diet, it's probably going to be effective, but it's a big if. Most people have a hard time sticking to the diet, not because inherently the diet is wrong or unhealthy or incorrect, just because people have an issue with emotional eating, stress eating, cravings, planning, etc. So for effectiveness, in the short term, if you follow it, great. If you, in the long term, in the real world, realistically speaking, it's a big giant X. Sustainability, same thing, big giant X. Accountability, unless you're going to keep visiting the dietitian over and over and over again, where they're not going to give you different information. They're just going to say, did you do what you did last time? Probably a big giant X. And lastly, cost is pretty cost effective. You just pay a one-time fee for the dietitian, maybe an occasional diet adjustment every 4 to 8 weeks, and that's that. So cost, we get a check mark. You could also try the do-it-yourself approach, the DIY approach. Safety, big giant question mark, because maybe you've come across good information, maybe you've come across bad information. So that one, the variability is so high. Effectiveness, again, if all you're doing is just sticking to an exercise program or a diet plan, that's all you get and no accountability, chances are it's probably a big giant X, because most people can't sustain lifestyle changes for the long term. Just because it's most people doesn't mean it's all people, but the vast majority cannot. Sustainability, big giant X. Accountability, you're not accountable to anybody, big giant X. The only benefit is the price. You pay nothing to research it yourself. I like to think of it of cost, not just in terms of money, but at the cost of time. How much time would it take you to research, do the right thing, figure out that it's not the right, that it's the wrong thing, and then try a different approach. So it's not just costing you money, it's also costing you time. What you might save some money, but you're paying a lot in time. And what's your time worth? You can make more money, you can't make more time. Finally, we get to the gold standard approach, which is personal training with a bonus. And the reason I say bonus is because most personal trainers are not trained in nutrition and certainly not in behavior modification. So if you get personal training with somebody who understands nutrition and behavior modification, it checks off all the boxes except for cost. Let's look at safety. Well, personal training is personal. Therefore, the exercise and the nutrition will be adjusted to your body to make it safe. Of course, you're going to a personal trainer not just to make it safe, but also effective. So check mark for effectiveness. Sustainability. As long as it's within your budget to keep paying a personal trainer. In my case, I've had clients for 15 years plus. So as long as it's sustainable for you to keep paying for a personal trainer, sustainability is there because the personal trainer keeps you on track, as well as the accountability side of things. You're seeing a professional who you would be embarrassed to disappoint in case you're off track. So because of that, it's very, very important to find a personal trainer who will occasionally check up on you, not just let's do the workout, but how's your nutrition going. The only downside is the cost. Of all the other options I mentioned, this is by far the most expensive in money, but the least expensive in time. Because again, this is a professional who is handing you everything on a silver platter: your exercise, nutrition, supplementation, tailored to your preferences, your body, your medical conditions, and so on. So this is the gold standard, but it also costs more money than the others. Case in point, here's one of our clients named Lynn. She is 70 years old in this picture, and before she started working with us, she was a very, very frustrated exerciser because she was pretty much clueless. She would exercise, but she'd go to the gym, look around the gym, wasn't really sure what she was doing, but just saw which machine was free, jump on that, wasn't sure if she was doing correctly, with the right amount of weight, repetitions, number of sets, in the right order, etc. And she's always struggled with the same 20 pounds. She'd go down 20 pounds, up 20 pounds, down 20 pounds, up 20 pounds. I could never really maintain that beyond 6 months. With the guidance that we provided her, she was able to keep that off now, 9 years later, and still keeping it off very, very well. Personal training is particularly for you if you've tried a lot of different diets and you're just hungry all the time. You don't know what to eat, or if you do know what to eat, you can't stick to it long term. You've tried different supplements that you might have been advertised on different social media platforms or you've seen on TV, and yet every time you try the supplement, you have high hopes and low results. You've tried group fitness classes as well as YouTube exercise videos, and while you're working hard, you're sweating, you're getting out of breath, there are no results to show for it. There's no connection between difficulty and results. It's also for you if you've spoken to a dietitian, you've gotten a perfect diet made for you that you didn't follow after maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks. And it's also for you if you've tried it yourself in the past, or you've been trying it yourself for the last few years or even decades, and you get nowhere in the long term. You can't maintain it. Now, let me show you how to lose body fat with our proven 3-step system. Step 1, that's nutrition. You see, the problem with nutrition is that most people think that they have a nutritional problem, but that's only a surface level problem. Most people already know what to eat. You just eat what your mother told you to eat when you were 5. More vegetables, more protein, less junk. This is obvious, almost every diet agrees on this, then why do we have a hard time sticking to it? The diet is not the problem. It's what's causing us the inability to stick to the diet that's the problem. And that's things like emotional eating, stress eating, cravings, lack of planning, etc. And once you address these things, the nutritional components fall into place much easier, but it takes consistent reinforcement. It's a habit-based approach, not a food or diet-based approach. You don't need another diet. You can look that up online. You don't need another meal plan. You can look that up online. You can get AI to do it for you. That's not the problem. The real problems are emotional eating, stress eating, cravings, and planning. The other pillar is exercise. While exercise is not very effective for fat loss, it is very effective to maintain the body fat you have lost. You might have heard in the past that fat loss is about 80% nutrition, 20% exercise. While I agree with that, they don't tell you what happens after you've lost the body fat and you're where you want to be. Then it's more like 50-50. Exercise plays a much bigger role in the maintenance of fat loss as opposed to the creation of fat loss. Finally, it's also about improving your sleep. A lot of people think of sleep as a vacant time where it's not that important, and so they don't really address it, even though they don't necessarily sleep well. Maybe it's insomnia, maybe it's sleep apnea, but by improving your sleep, it helps you with a lot of other things. For example, it reduces your cravings, because when you don't sleep, you don't have energy. You can improve that energy by drinking coffee. While coffee inherently isn't bad, you rarely drink it by itself. You might add syrup or cream or sugar or something else. So it helps you reduce your cravings. Also, when you're tired, you don't want to expend more energy by exercising. But if you're less tired by sleeping better, you're able to get additional benefits out of exercise. So there's a big, giant reason in order to sleep. Just think of it from a logical perspective. If you live to the age of 90, you will have spent 30 years asleep. That probably means it's pretty important. And if it's that important, you might as well make the most out of it by getting yourself the best sleep possible. Like Ivan. Ivan was able to lose 14 pounds of body fat by improving his sleep, but also improving his exercise as well as his nutrition. And as a result of that, he was able to actually play tennis better, he was hurting less, he was more focused, and he was happier and leaner all around. This brings us to our unique personal training solution. It's a 3-step system. So how can you get results like this? You have 2 different options. Option 1 is you can do it yourself. Of course, we've talked about this earlier. Doing it yourself has the obvious advantage of maybe you'll hit it right off the bat and everything is great. But more likely you probably won't, and you'll have a lot of frustration. Of course, the upside is it costs you nothing. Also, if you want to do it yourself, you have to spend a lot of time understanding anatomy and physiology. Now, unless you want to take an undergraduate level course in these subjects, it's probably better to just hire somebody who's already done that course or those courses. And of course, if you've ever tried losing weight in the past on your own, you know that the risk of quitting is very high because there is no accountability to anybody. And that's exactly why there are personal training services, to overcome all of these barriers. Accountability taken care of, effectiveness taken care of, safety taken care of. Which is your second option, get personal training the right way. Personal training gives you all the tools that you need to reach your optimal body fat levels in an optimal way. Here's what it entails. It starts off with an initial assessment, and that's complimentary. I'll tell you how to book it in a second. The next component is, of course, nutrition to help you lose body fat, and that's where the lion's share of the results will come from. It also entails exercise as well as personalized guidance on supplementation to understand exactly what do you need, but just as importantly, what do you not need. Maybe you don't need any supplements, and maybe you need a few. And will even help you on the sleep side of things. Now, not every personal training company is created equal. I don't know how much you know about the personal training industry. However, what is required in general to become a personal trainer is, well, nothing. Any random person on the street can call themselves a personal trainer. There's no certification. It's not government regulated. Because of that, it's very easy for anyone to call themselves a personal trainer. A step above that is a weekend certification. At least here in Canada and in parts of the United States, it's just a weekend certification. It's a 24-hour course. 8 hours on Friday, 8 hours Saturday, 8 hours Sunday, and you're a personal trainer. Now, you're not a good personal trainer, but you're a personal trainer. The trainers that I hire to work for my company have minimally a 2-year diploma or a 4-year degree plus 2 years of experience. Nobody is hired fresh out of school, okay? And so very important to not just do a general category of personal training, but specifically the right personal trainer for you. If you've been, in any career, whether you're a nurse, accountant, lawyer, teacher, etc., you know that not all people in your profession are good. Maybe 10%, 20% are good, maybe 60% are so-so, and maybe 20% are bad. Same thing is true for personal trainers. There's, 1 to 5% who are very, very good, 15% who are pretty decent, 60% who are average, and 20% who are really bad, okay? But just because somebody is likable doesn't mean they're competent. Okay, we have to distinguish those two. Lots of personal trainers are upbeat, well-meaning, well-intentioned, enthusiastic people, but it doesn't mean that they have the education to train a senior's body. If you want to move further, you can feel free to apply to work with us in the Google form in the description below, and that'll just get you a 10 to 15 minute Zoom chat. It's complimentary, no sales pitch, no pressure. It's just to see A, what's your situation, and B, can we help you or not. Thank you and goodbye.